What's this pussy doing? Oh, pussy. You're failing me in your mouse grabbing efforts. I know you do get quite a few. Yeah. I just come out here and yesterday I realised there's quite a few leaves on the solar panels out here, so I come out and gave them a flick off with the broom yesterday, and I thought, well, we better go and get a proper rag, and there it is there with a bit of detergent and properly clean them. So I did. The sun's still over there. It's only about 20 past 8 right now. I got up about 8 and oh. Have a guess what was in the battery box? Yeah, this decent sized clod come out of the second battery box. I don't know how easily you'll see it. Probably won't, but there's still a few little bits of the heads of the grass under there. I got most of it out. I'm going to come out later with a little brush and brush the remain out of the back. It's sort of between the charge controller box and the battery box is a bit there. And I blowed and I huffed and I puffed. And fortunately, all of this is mounted on timber. What's the matter, boss? Bit slippery, eh, bud? Oh, you can smell the mouse on it now, can you? No, you're licking water off the top. It licks water off anything, you know. It's one of these things. You have a water bowl for the cat and it'll drink in friggin' puddles. It'll probably... I haven't seen it yet, but I bet you it's trying to lick water off the solar panels and you name it. It'll get it from everywhere else. But fortunately there's a bit of wood which I've spray painted black, which is there, so the planks are sort of separated. They're fairly thick planks, about 3/4 inch planks, and then you got concrete slab underneath, so it means that I've been able to get a bit of the muck through the gaps, and I might get a stick under there and flick out the remaining stuff. I've got rid of most of it, but I want to do a couple other things today and I'll come back to that. I wasn't even going to do this, but I thought, while the dew's on there and it's nice and wet, I'll do it, and then I'll use the watering can to clear it all off. But I like to do that every once in a while, just get out and there's always a bit of grime or a little bit of algae or some other muck. Like, fortunately we don't really have that much thingo take hold, lichen, although it does seem to get on cars around here very easily, too friggin' easily, like as in you're still driving the damn cars and sometimes the lichen's starting to form, you know, so yeah, so anyway, that can be that the paint's not the best on a vehicle. It started to happen to that white wagon that I've got over there, which quite frankly will be going to scrap metal at some point. So fortunately we don't get much lichen, but you do get a little bit of algae, and the dust here, you know, because it's a clay soil, when it gets dry it's extremely fine, and you know, it's fine like cement dust because it's clay, and that'll always catch on the wind and you always end up with some on the solar panels. And you know, it's not the only place. It seems to get bloody everywhere. So ultimately, don't fall off, puss. Ultimately, what ends up happening is I always got to wipe some stuff off, but I like to do that every once in a while anyway. Yeah, I was thinking about, you know, how you got to check this every once in a while. That's the first time, you know, and I've been here. I almost 10 years, so these would have been here about 9.5 years at this point. And that's the first time I've had a mouse nest in there. But it is a good idea. No, you don't need to check it every day, but, you know, every couple of months, to see the spider webs aren't building up, which they were on the heat fins of the inverter in the back of this, you know, because the inverter's housed in the same box. And, you know, there's no little miceys chewing cables because that can cause a problem. And there's no mouse nest building up, which, you know, or birds' nests, which can really turn into a flammable incident, you know, and then everything goes to hell. As half your electrical system burns out, and you're lucky if it doesn't take to the grass or the damn house if you've got it inside one room of a wooden house or up against the, you know, the outer panels of a wooden house, you know. Say, for instance, if I had solar panels on the veranda roof and all the boxes were mounted directly on the wooden wall here, you know, and although they were screwed into the wooden wall, I had another plastic cover over the top of it, or a steel cover over the top of it, and then all this stuff built up with mouse nests and bullshit, and I never looked at it, and one day, woof, you know, a little mouse nest catch on fire, straight onto blasted boards that aren't much more than half an inch thick. You know, you could take a flipping whole house down with it, without too much of a big scenario needing to happen, just a stinking mouse nest. And an inverter that's warming up too much in the middle of summer, and, you know, hell knows what could happen. Especially if little Mousey decides to put his foot between the positive and the negative and causes a couple of sparks to throw into his nest. You know, you could take a whole house out. And I know you can, because there's been plenty of electrical fires that have taken houses out that are on-grid houses that have gone down plenty of times, including one owned by one of my uncle's friends. He lost a house from that, and had a fucking heart attack when he come home to his house half burnt down. Or was it it was a heart attack. And then he went in for a multiple bypass after his heart attack, discharged himself because, quote unquote, I can't sit in this hospital for fucking 2 weeks. Went back home, shore a sheep, which took him, you know, about 15 times longer than it should have, and one of the multiple bypasses was leaking blood because he obviously, you know, still had stitches in his chest and everything, and he fucking just died on the spot from it. Crazy. The guy went from his house burning down to dead in fucking like less than 10 days. Yeah. It's what happens when you don't take doctor's advice. And it's also what happens when you live in old houses full of shit with bad cabling. Thank God all the cabling in this house is, well, you know, like 10 years old. So, and this is another thing too with all these bloody mice. I don't have cables in the fucking wall. It's on the outside of the wall. Why? So the little bastards ain't chewing a cable inside the roof space, because there's all the chance in the world that they bloody will do it. So I have cables hanging off the walls and off the ceilings, all on there with the proper little plastic saddle clamps. You know, I'm not getting nails and bending them up, buying the proper plastic saddle clamps from electrical supply places, but it's all outside and everyone's like, oh, this looks like shit. Yeah, it does, because I don't need anything to be chewed inside the roof space. I'd rather have it looking like shit on the side of the ceiling that I can see, or, in the case of this one, inside conduit, because I thought that was the best option to use conduit. There's even conduit running to that one. You know, and then you got no issues. You've got no issues, because nothing can get their bloody teeth in it without you seeing. Speaking of setting up this is what I was originally thinking of. I was just saying to myself, like, if you had to redo the wiring here, it'd be a pain in the arse. And I remember myself, it was a pain in the arse to do this. I had to run a generator just to run a soldering iron to solder up all the connections that have made up this. because, you know, I'm not one of these people that crimps things. I'm one of these people that solders it properly, because I don't like doing a fucking shit job. I do it properly, you know. And having been a computer nerd in my teens and being extremely good with a soldering iron, there's a video or two of me using a soldering iron, and you can see me going at factory speeds on a soldering iron, because I'm damn good at doing soldering. And not just that, but doing soldering is the proper way to do it. And yeah, you can do a crimp, you know, and that'll reach standards, but it's never the reliability, it's never the longevity of soldering something solid. So I had to use a soldering generator to run a soldering iron just to solder all this up, which made me think it's good to have two systems, because now I've got a 12-volt soldering iron that ain't a top grade quality one. It's just a shitty Chinese one, but all the same, it's like a full Bakelite outside, and it works blasted well, actually. It's good to have two systems, because then you can use a 12-volt soldering iron to fix up the other system, or you've got a second power source when the first one has issues. And, you know, this is not lost on me when the batteries have died on this system previously, because it doesn't have $1 million forklift batteries in this one. It's just got basic deep cycles. At the moment, it's running South Korean deep cycles in this one. I did have Taiwanese ones, and my first battery was one that was an already burnt out return that I got duped into buying at a shop that was an Australian one, that I now find out it's one of the worst brands of battery there is. Even though it's made in Australia, it's fucking atrocious. It's worse than the giant green Taiwanese ones you might remember me having, which are bloody huge. I've still got them stored in a particular spot with a whole heap of other dead car batteries, and one day they're going to go to scrap metal as well, along with all the other old car batteries and bits and pieces. You make quite $1 in scrap metal out of batteries, by the way. And then you go to get your battery changed when you get, you know, one change in the car, and the dumb bastards charge you money to dispose of it, and they're making like $5 a kilo. Like, this is like about $2 a pound they're making out of it. And I know you Americans will be shocked, because you're probably getting 3 or 4 times the price that we make on scrap metal. We don't make jack shit on scrap metal compared to the United States, but having said that, batteries have got real money in them. Lead batteries for scrap metal. Anyway, I was also thinking, you know, how would you be without anything? And I thought to myself, in the first 6 to 9 months or whatever it was, 6 months or so, where I had no solar panels here, and it was a lot of batteries and a lot of bullshit and a lot of swapping around, but things have changed, because there's things like this ryobi 1 Plus. If you had a job, you can potentially take a charger to work and charge these up under your office desk or whatever, and you can do quite well with that alone. And I tell you what, there is such an expanding range in 1 Plus. This is not an advertisement for 1 Plus, but my God, they got everything now. I saw the other day, this is going back a few months, water transfer pumps. They have bloody water pumps that run off these batteries. That is not a joke. Water pumps. It was only a transfer pump, so you're not going to get really tall. It was only a 3/4 inch line, but hey, you know, it's a water pump. You know, you're not going to pump up really tall. You might get 2 or 3 yards in the air. You know, you probably won't get any more than 10 foot high, because it's only a transfer pump. It's not a lift pump, but it's better than nothing, you know. And then I went in the other day. We have 2 different kinds of soldering iron, including one that's a temperature-controlled soldering iron that runs off these. And would you believe it, a bloody air compressor, complete with a small tank that's about the size of 2 bean tins. Yeah, an actual air compressor with a tank that runs off of these batteries. Now, lighting options. There is an absolute shit ton of lighting options. Heaps of things. You got xenon bulbs, which are like bloody car headlight type thing, that'll, you know, that's one sort of torch you can get. You got LED spotlights, you got fluorescent ones, you got like a fluorescent floodlight thing, and you got a lot of stuff. You got a lot of stuff in terms of what you can get, but you got some monster LED ones that are, you know, quite substantial, that have been, you know, made for these. But yes, you get just about everything for it. You've always been able to get the mini vacuum cleaner. You can even get a corking gun that's a powered corking gun. All off these same batteries. You can get, oh yeah, radio with an MPEG-3 player. You've been able to get that for a few years now. You get fans. I've got a fan that runs off of these. There's not much you can't get. There's all the usual power tools, circular saw. You've actually got a miter saw as well that runs off of these. I don't know if you can do complete miters with it. I think you can actually. Only does like 4x2s, but all the same, you know, you cut a little bit of wood with it. I have the circular saw of these, and I cut a lot of wood with the circular saw, and that's the main use of these, is a circular saw and the reciprocating saw that I have for these. But if you're in the right job and you work it right, you know, there's a multitude of chargers. You can get 12-volt charger that fits in a cigarette lighter for these. You can get a mains powered one, which is mine, which is the low wattage, slower charger, 55 watt, because I knew it would run easily off these. But you can get another one that's like an hour charger that's, I think it's like 300 watts or something, you know, that you can plug in. You can also get another one that does, that holds 6 batteries. Yeah, it's a charger for 6 batteries for these. So this is the thing, if you're really up shit creek, it's surprising what you can do. Of course, not surprisingly, you can get a little thing which charges USB with this. And if I'm not incorrect, that might be included in something else I've seen which is also new for these batteries, and I was very delighted to see it. They have inverters, so you have a modified sine wave inverter. I think it's only about 150 watt, but it is literally something you can plug this into on one end and a mains power plug on the other end, and I was like, oh beauty. We now have inverter power running out of these. So I haven't bought that one because I don't really need it, and yeah, but it's intriguing what you can get now. And you know, you say, well, why would you need that? Why not just run off solar? Yeah, well, yeah. The last 4 days have been so incredibly overcast that I don't know if I'm getting any more than a handful of watts. With these, in these light conditions, where you can see it's nice and bright and the cat's sunbaking away next to the water tank there and all that, that's good. This will be getting, you know, this is supposed to be about 240 watts, and it'll be soaking in at least 220 at this point. You know, it'll probably be soaking in the full 240, but at least 220. But you get a day where it's not overcast, but not super blindingly bright, like real full sun like it is now, and you'll only get a third of that. Then you get an overcast day, and you're doing bloody well if you can make 10%, 24 watts. And that's a not terribly overcast day. And the last couple of days, you know, I won't be surprised if out of the whole 240 watts, I might have been pumping 10 watts because it was that overcast. This is the thing, once your light levels drop down, you don't get shit. And it drops off extremely quick. You can go from 240 watts to 80 watts in the space of, in the difference between bright sun and fairly light but not bright as such. You know, plenty of light, but a couple of clouds, but not glaringly, I need sunglasses bright. The I need sunglasses bright will get you the full power, like it will today. The you know, I don't need sunglasses, but it's bright, will get you 80 watts out of 240 watts, or you know, maybe 100 or something like that. You know, it's not the full 9 yards. And this is the thing, what happens when you hit winter and it's just one overcast day after another after another? Well, this is the point at which you might want to consider taking these to work. This is the point where you may consider still running your mains lights inside your house, but the master plug, the main plug, is plugged into the inverter which hooks to these. You know, just saying. It gives you the convenience to still have the lights in your house all set up properly without having to carry a lantern from one room to the other, but still being able to charge everything at work. And it sounds nuts, but until you've lived on solar alone, or you've had times where it's too dark for solar and there's no wind for wind turbines, well, what are you going to bloody do? The next option is, I forget the abbreviation, but it's a Peltier system that makes power. And you say, that's great, yeah, well, hold up, because they make about 5 watts each. And they're not cheap, you know, you'll be paying, you know, $70 or higher for something that makes 5 watts that you've then got to set up with heat transfer paste, you know, sheets of copper, and all bolted in to a wood stove which you've had to put clamps on and piss around and maybe even drill a few holes in certain spots just to get 5 watts for a $70 thing. Yeah, right. And you got to keep that other side cool as well, so you either got to have a fan, which is going to take away some of your power, or you got to work out some water cooling. It's a shit show. People have those. They are such low power generation and such a shit show to do. It's not worth even doing, in my opinion. If you want to set one up, you can, you know, but don't expect any real power to come out of those. At least not with the technology levels we've got now. Give another 10 years, they'll probably be great. Give another 10 years, it's probably something you can just clamp on your stovepipe and bingo, and you know, you got 80 watts pouring in just like in the next 10 minutes, you know, but it's not like that yet. So anyway, I don't have many long talks, not lately. Thought I'd better have one, because I start thinking about a few things, and I've got a day that's not a complete rush today. I have for the first time in weeks, for the first time in damn near a month. But anyway, things are same old around here. Although you haven't seen anything for a year, so that doesn't really mean a bloody thing. But yeah, still got a lot of firewood to do and a lot of bullshit. Gonna have a tractor come over and rip out a whole heap of bits and pieces. I've got to try and hook up to one of these branches up in the blasted tree here that's been hanging there for years, and it's a bloody risk. Having trouble getting the strap up there, so I'm gonna have to get up with a big stick and a blooming ladder today. Got other ones that I'll be dealing with out on the point. There's lots of little bits and pieces, mostly involving firewood that I've got to do. I haven't maintained the driveway for a few years now, so we've got to really look at doing that as well. Yeah. Anyway, I've been cutting a lot of wood for this new wood heater. Big pile there. There's a lot of wood around. There always is, because I get my thrills cutting wood. I love cutting wood. I don't know why, I just love it. And then I'm just mounded over with it. And then I've got to tell myself to slow down, because every bit of wood sitting on the ground is a bit of wood that's probably rotting as it's laying on the ground, and bugs are eating it. So you got to sort of limit yourself to how much you actually drop and fall on the ground. And there's a few years ago that I pulled out that were in the front of the house, like there, and would you believe it, we still haven't used some of that, because a lot of it's not big stuff like this. A lot of it's, you know, smaller stuff that's not 4x2, but it's not this big, so you don't really, yeah, I don't find a time to really use it. But Anyway, I've got to get on with what's got to be done. I've had a lot of offcuts that I've had sitting here for years that my uncle got from somewhere, and they just keep rotting, so I've made a point of trying to bring them all up and stick them in tubs here so I actually do stuff with them. And we've been running around getting a lot of random bricks and stuff for this wood heater, only to find a lot of them are just old shit. So I'm probably going to find a place to store the shit ones and separate them from the better ones, which those are the better ones there, and then start filling some holes up in the driveway. By the way, I might make a separate video on this, but here's the chimney. So you get a bolt, that doesn't go all the way through, that's two small ones, and that's your top, and then there's a clamp which will go side to side that way, and you can spin it around, and that's basically the ends underneath the plywood. That's basically the chimney for this thing. Anyway, another big stack of wood. This is where I've got the fenced off the bloomin' fig tree. Fenced it right off. The bloomin' fence is like 6'6" tall to keep the thingos out, to keep the sheep out, and now it's not producing much fruit. It's got a bit, but it's just a bit of a lackluster amount compared to usual, even though now it's finally protected from the sheep. It's yeah. Would you believe I had all the wires sorted out and a few of the posts? My father just slapped this thing up in a day. He just whacked this whole friggin' enclosure up. I've got a few bits and pieces here and there where I'm trying to, although you can't see them much now because the leaves are starting to fall off, but I'm trying to keep some of these trees, protect some of these plum trees from the sheep. Some of them are going to be too big to replant. A lot of them are actually. But all the same, I want to keep them growing because in years to come, that's your next firewood stash. Probably after I'm dead, but you know, like, if you can save a tree because somebody will need it for firewood one day and they'll be grateful. So anyway, another firewood stack. Anyway, I better get on with what I got to do.